Good morning. Thank you very much for this invitation to speak at this prestigious event. It's a real and genuine honour to be able to address such a distinguished room of educational pioneers. As Pierre was saying, I am a relative newcomer to higher education, having spent the majority of my career in media, helping to drive the digital development of BBC Radio and then BBC Television. And just over a year ago, I was first introduced to the word MOOC. In a dark room in one of the British Open University's buildings, I was handed a pack for the mysteriously named Project Kylo. A Kylo, it turns out, is a cow. A moo cow, for those of you who don't yet get it, and was the code name for the Open University's bid to enter the MOOC space. Now, MOOC has, of course, already been added to a variety of dictionaries, joining other revolutionary new trends such as twerking and selfies, both of which were much in evidence yesterday, I understand. Now, I'm still not sure about the term MOOC, I have to be honest, and I'll come back to that point later. But there's no doubt that MOOCs are big news and the focal point of debates which are raging over the future of higher education. On the one hand, to quote Thomas Friedman in the New York Times, nothing has more potential to unlock 1 million more brains to solve the world's biggest problem. This kind of evangelism has inevitably led to apocalyptic predictions for the established industry. The end of the university. I groan when I read this stuff. It feels like Groundhog Day. When I was at BBC Radio, people predicted that the medium, which generated over 1 billion listening hours a week in the UK alone, was now irrelevant in the face of iTunes and Napster. Later, at BBC Television, the hype was even more deafening and doom-laden. Who could possibly need the channels, the schedules, the multiple producers, the diverse program range of the past? The future was fully on demand, with the death of documentary and live entertainment and the rise of self-scheduling, box sets and binging. Unfortunately, those who correctly thought this was all nonsense retreated to the other end of the spectrum and dismissed the arrival of digital as a fad. In those industries, as in higher education now, there was a polarization of debate, fear, uncertainty and doubt, evangelists and doom-mongers. When it comes to MOOCs, evangelists predict that MOOCs will solve world poverty, replace degrees and destroy universities, make teachers redundant and dumb down teaching. And provoked by these extreme views, many commentators retreat to the opposite end of the debate, argue that the whole MOOC phenomenon centres on myths. They're teaching simplistic, failure rates proof that there's no substance beyond just marketing, which is a particularly dirty word. Their impact irrelevant because learners tend to have degrees already. And even the most informed commentators have been provoked to make sweeping assertions such as this. I have had many opportunities to observe that very intelligent people leave their brains behind when it comes to technology. The MOOC phenomenon is just further confirmation of that simple truth. Now, I actually agree with this statement, but I would level the accusation at people on both sides of the argument. We all as an industry need to take a more balanced view of MOOCs. Because in my view, MOOCs are just one part of a wider digital disruption hitting higher education. It's the arrival of the internet, not just of MOOCs, which is an unparalleled opportunity to transform the effectiveness of learning and open it up to millions more people. But we need to recognise that we're only so far scratching the surface of what is possible. I used to make the same arguments in television. It seemed crazy to me that the arrival of the internet could be exaggerated so greatly by one side, predicting the death of traditional TV, and dismissed by the other, both of them missing the point of what amazing opportunities there were to transform the future without destroying the status quo. Access to on-demand content has been transformed, and yet television viewing has gone up. The web has opened up new creative opportunities, but rather than dumb down TV, it's thought to be in a golden age. And the arrival of social media has enhanced, not destroyed, the value of live, water-cooler television. Finally, organisations like the BBC have embraced and adapted the technology, while new entrants from Netflix to YouTube take their place alongside. So similarly, I regard the next few years with enormous optimism for higher education as a whole and the place of universities within it. Coursera and edX have trailblazed the way for the rest of us, building on the open education movement pioneered by their founding universities and the Open University, among others. Today, I can navigate hundreds of courses from dozens of world-leading universities. I can learn about the history of the Beatles on Coursera, the challenges of global poverty on edX, storytelling on iversity, nonlinear optics on FUN, on the FUN, and Hamlet, anatomy, or the discovery of the Higgs boson started yesterday on Futurelearn. This explosion of creativity opens up access to our universities like never before and is the most powerful showcase has ever been of the talent, expertise and passion that was previously locked within their ivory towers. I can learn at my own pace, on my own device, in my own living room, and I can do so in a variety of new, exciting, interactive ways. And this doesn't have to be a solitary experience anymore. I can learn together with groups of other people. I can interact and collaborate with them. And yes, many of those first learners have degrees already. But were other new technologies just a fad because their earliest adopters were the most technically literate and demographically suited? Of course, most of the people we're attracting are already reasonably advanced in education. They're the first to have heard of MOOCs, because let none of us fool ourselves that this is a mass market phenomenon yet. And at Futurelearn, even though most of our learners have degrees as well, over 60% have never taken an online course before. Many are now in full-time work or at a stage where attendance at a university has ceased to be an ambition or an option. And they can't believe they're being given another chance to learn. That is a phenomenal opportunity for universities to expand and rethink their traditional role and models. MOOCs are attracting new investment, new talent, new partnerships to higher education, and revitalising interest from audiences and from stakeholders, from governments and businesses and across the developing world. And let's not forget that the higher education sector, which would certainly have been characterised as slow-moving, bureaucratic, siloed and divided, and technically backward, has moved at astonishing pace to experiment, adapt, and partner around MOOCs. Last week, I had the privilege of speaking to Anant Agarwal and Johannes Heinlein from edX, to Catherine Mongenet from the French Higher Education Ministry, and a project leader for the University of Amsterdam's first MOOCs. All of us shared a similar story of moving at a pace we hadn't thought was possible among universities. Our own first year as Futurelearn was breathtaking and the most invigorating of my career. And yet it already feels like ancient history. There's no doubt that competition has driven much of this pace of development. But I'm intrigued now by how collaboration may take us on to the next stage. I think most, probably all of us, recognise that MOOCs are not the only game in town. They're early in their development, that each platform can offer something different, and that early predictions of the emergence of a single dominant player are unlikely and probably undesirable. I'm inspired by the spirit that unites our startups, and I hope we'll find tangible ways to collaborate in the future. Perhaps around raising awareness of what we're all doing, perhaps to target some of those audiences who haven't yet discovered our courses, perhaps to share insights on new learning techniques, perhaps to find a better word than MOOC. Perhaps we could all work together to change the debate, to share more proportionate and relevant claims of the benefits and dispel some of the ridiculous negativity of commentators who dismiss what we're doing. So now let me move on to trying to explain how we at Futurelearn are approaching these opportunities and trying to bring something fresh and different to this exciting space. And I guess the first thing to say is that though we're certainly born of the MOOC movement and we're capitalizing on the interest and momentum that massive open online courses have created, we see MOOCs as a starting point for our entry into online learning, not an end in themselves. As we grow our audience, introduce more sophisticated social learning tools, and make our course materials more open, I hope we'll move towards being a social learning network and a community of learners, as well as simply people doing one-off courses. We're founded, 100% owned and funded by the British Open University. Founded in 1969, it was an early pioneer of distance and online learning with an open entry policy that's attracted over 250,000 students worldwide. And this legacy gives them a real mandate to move into the MOOC space. However, they realized they needed to move at the speed of the internet, so they created Futurelearn as an autonomous startup, enabling us to take risks, iterate and develop as fast as the space in which we work, to unleash the Open University in new ways on new audiences, and as an enabler of the broader university sector. We want to be strong in two areas. Firstly, partnership, helping our universities to innovate and experiment, empowering academic teams with wonderfully simple production tools that enable them to focus on teaching, not learning, new technology. Fostering collaboration, sharing data and learning together what makes a great course, the motivations and behaviours of different groups of learners. And we're delighted to number over 20 of the top UK universities, plus leading universities from Australia, New Zealand and Ireland among our first partners. And we're very open for discussions with other European and international universities who may want to join us. So look me up or come to our Futurelearn Meets Its Partners session tomorrow if you want to know more. We want to link these university partners to other cultural bodies, such as the British Library, British Council and British Museum, who've also joined Futurelearn. And commercial partnerships, such as these pilot collaborations we have with British Telecom and the Institute of Engineering and Technology, who will help fund, augment and develop new progressions out of our courses into qualifications, further study, jobs, or just development of people's passions. Secondly, we want to be strong in product development, learning from the best of what's gone before, but bringing a new, modern, social web take, bringing simple, intuitive, uncluttered user experience, and a responsive design which means the site adapts to suit whatever screen size you're using. And around a quarter of all of our visits are already coming from these mobile devices. We're developing powerful analytics to help us, our educators and our partners understand how people interact with the product and the courses. And we've adopted an agile software development methodology, which means we react quickly to feedback and can release software updates several times a day. Our product vision's pretty simple. Firstly, telling stories. We want to use the web as a creative medium, not just a dumb pipe to distribute recorded lectures and existing teaching materials. Outside the classroom, it's more important than ever to have rich media storytelling experiences to illustrate academic content and to help bring learning to life. We believe we've a lot to learn here from traditional media like TV. Things like creating engaging narratives with a beginning, a middle and an end, packaging and scheduling content for maximum impact, using rich media content as a spark to ignite social discussion. Because it's that shared event-like nature of the MOOC experience that we find particularly compelling, also where we think much more can be done. This is one of our courses, an introduction to forensic science developed by the University of Strathclyde, and one of our most popular, with nearly 30,000 registrations. Now, my wife's been doing this course, and what's intriguing about it is, alongside the denser academic material, they've introduced a murder mystery, which unfolds week by week, and in the process introduces her to different aspects, from examining blood splatters in a car to taking fingerprints. The other week, she asked me on a Sunday morning if we had any vodka in the freezer. Now, I don't know what it's like in the rest of continental Europe, but that's a little bit early for vodka in the UK. But it turned out she was going to use it to extract all of our DNA. Now, it's still a demanding course, and there have been moments where she's been worried about whether she can keep up. But this focus on innovative storytelling has made her feel welcome and has helped motivate her through the course. And we're also going to be using our broader content partnerships to work with universities to augment their courses with the rich media materials in others' archives and to encourage the co-creation of courses. So, for example, the BBC has begun to work with 4 of our universities on the development of 4 MOOCs based around the centenary commemorations of World War I. We also want to offer people, those who aren't yet ready to commit to register for a full course, a learning experience without the need to sign up. We want to draw them in by surfacing our course content more openly, letting them stumble upon our pages on fingerprinting or the Galapagos Islands in Google, or through links in social media from those who've enjoyed one of the steps they've been taking and have shared it with their friends and followers. So we're working to make all of our pages more open and discoverable on the web. The second of our product principles is provoking conversation, which we've embedded in the platform and our courses through a focus on social learning. Now, from the start, we decided to adapt social learning as the foundations for the pedagogy of Futurelearn. Whilst it's not a new approach, indeed it's been around since the 70s and has long been championed by the Open University, social learning is for us the most exciting area in the emergence of MOOCs and the one with the richest potential for new innovation. At its core, this approach recognizes that in any learning environment, a huge amount of the educational experience comes from interaction between students. In physical universities, this has always been an implicit part of the process, but in distance learning, it's something you need to consciously construct, and is even more important as one of the biggest barriers to distance learning is loneliness. Our aim is to create rich conversations among engaged learners. And we've achieved this by integrating social features right into the course content. On every page, we don't send learners off into separate forums. Instead, every element of a Futurelearn course is linked to a rolling discussion. For example, short videos that end with a question and provoke a very rich mix of comments and replies. And we're also taking the principles of social media with which the audience is increasingly familiar and threading them through our courses, creating profile pages, the ability to follow people, to like comments, and to filter the massive conversation. And we're designing other elements such as small group discussions and peer reviews which support social learning. The challenge is to do this at massive scale and without delay, so that learners can engage whenever they go online and they don't have to wait days for a response. We just run our first courses with peer review. We spent a lot of time developing it, thinking hard about how to make it engaging. And we've been really encouraged by the early indications that learners are getting a response within 12 hours, most within 30 minutes, and they're loving it. We're still in beta, and we're delighted by the start we've made and these foundations we've put in place. We've built our social architecture from scratch, with the design informed by pedagogy, not just using commoditized pieces of technology. And we don't force our learners to be social, but we're finding that around a third of them are taking part in these conversations. That's actively commenting in these courses, which is a figure which blows away any digital products I've been involved with in my time. Finally, we aim to celebrate success, to motivate and reward progression rather than mourn failure rates and obsess about dropouts, phrases which for me epitomize the flawed way in which our critics are viewing what we're doing. We believe that every learner is a valuable learner for Futurelearn, and we want to provide them with a valuable learning experience, whether they spend 1 hour, 1 week, or 6 weeks on one of our courses. We want to celebrate learners' success at every stage to help them recognize progress and to reward participation. We make their learning visible to them on their personalized progress page to encourage them and motivate them to continue. Our quizzes and tests provide progressive and visible feedback, offering hints and tips along the way rather than just giving a score at the end, making participation a goal in itself, not just completion. And we'll provide a free, shareable record of learning to everyone alongside the statements and the onward assessments that form the most requested features from our learners. So that was the approach we started with when we launched our first courses in beta around 3.5 months ago. And I'm glad to say the early indications are that our instincts about what might work in this market seem to be on the right track. We've had over 1 million visitors from more than 190 countries, resulting in over 200,000 registered users, meaning we're soon going to overtake the Open University, and nearly 400,000 registrations to our courses. And we've analysed the data from those first 8 courses, where we put caps on the number of registrations, which we set at 10,000 while we were establishing the platform. We then removed that cap at the end of the period. I'm going to share some of that data with you. We calculate that around 60% of those who registered then actually joined the course in week 1. We call these our learners, and it's against these that we benchmark the rest of our numbers. As part of our commitment to helping learners to monitor and visualize their progress, we invite all of them to mark steps as complete once they've watched a video, read an article, or participated in a discussion. Around 86% of learners are marking steps as complete, and we call these our active learners. Around 50% of learners mark steps in multiple weeks. 25% of them still do in the final week of the course. And in order to qualify for a statement of participation, we ask our learners to complete the majority of steps plus all of the assessments. We believe that this celebrates the learning as well as the knowledge they've acquired. Just doing the tests isn't enough. And an average of 15% of learners is fully participating in a course. And finally, as I've said throughout this presentation, our key focus at Futurelearn is social learning. And we've been delighted by the fact that 34% of learners are using these social features. Many more will have been vicariously learning without actually commenting. But while these figures are a great start, we know we're only at the beginning and we're still trying to establish what our own key metrics should be. But more than anything, what convinces us that we're onto something here is the reaction of our learners in our social environments and in their responses to our surveys. Please go and sign up for one of our courses if you haven't already, anyone. And I reckon you'll see what thrills us. The excitement, the passion, the erudition, the commitment of a genuinely international community of learners. This is reflected in the qualitative analysis we've undertaken. Nearly 90% of people surveyed at the end of our first 8 courses rated the experience good or excellent. 71% wanted to do another course straight away or in a few weeks' time, and only half of those beta course learners have already signed up for another course. 92% said the course met or exceeded their expectations. 94% of them surveyed would recommend Futurelearn to a friend. I would have killed for those kind of results while I was at the BBC. So to conclude, a few years ago I was talking to a famous and brilliant UK documentary maker, Adam Curtis, who compared the situation as the web arrived in television to 1895 when the Lumiere brothers showed film of a train pulling into La Ciotat station. Audiences flocked to the new cinemas and reacted with awe and fear to this incredible new medium. But though they enjoyed what they were seeing, they had no idea what lay in store for them. Because not far away, the first filmmakers were starting to develop the true creative potential of this new medium. Now, we're far beyond that in imagining where the fusion of the web and higher education could go. I believe that with MOOCs at the stage they are now, we're still just starting to see the green shoots of what's truly possible when one empowers our best educators to exploit the web and partner with new entrants eager to help and extend learning. When one experiments with the social web to create new forms of learning. Of course, MOOCs aren't the only game in town, and on their own, they're not going to change the world. But they've captured the imagination of learners, administrators, governments, funders, the media, many academics, and despite what some may think, they're not all stupid. Futurelearn's just got started, and we're looking forward to going on this journey with you. Thank you very much.